Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alpha Woolen, and I'm your host this evening for the Inside Scoop. I'm so excited for tonight's show. Tonight, we are going to be focusing on education policy, and we have two guests for you. Our first guest is Dana Marie Miles, who is a member of the Manassas School Board. Dana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. I think that people are starting to understand now the importance of local government and that it touches their lives, their everyday lives. It comes to their doorstep. So I'm really excited to talk about education policy, specifically your role as a school board member and what people can expect.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So let's get started. So first, tell folks what made you want to run in the first place, because you've just been a school board member for 1 year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I will say the first reason why I decided to run for school board was because I have children of my own. And I looked at the schools that I was in the surrounding areas, and I heard this and that about them. And my son was an upcoming sixth grader, and I really wanted to be a part of the change so that I can change the trajectory of the way people see the schools that my son goes to and just the schools in my neighborhood. So that was one reason. The other reason why I'm a teacher as well. So I have a background in education, and I thought that I really could be a benefit using that experience as a teacher and as a mom. So that's why.
And so according to your background, so you've taught in Prince William County Public Schools and Manassas City Park.
Yes. So I taught in Manassas Park City Schools for 8 years. And then I currently am in Prince William, and this is my 4th year in Prince William teaching. Yeah.
Okay. And so what topic do you teach, or what subject?
So I'm an elementary school teacher. I taught first grade for a couple years, then second grade for 3. And then my expertise, which I love and just a heart for it, is teaching English as a second language. So I'm an ESOL teacher. So currently I'm a mentor for teachers in my school. All the ESOL teachers, I mentor and coach them. And so that background of being an ESOL teacher for 4 years really helped with that. So that's what I do now.
And I also saw in your background that you worked with women and children's programs in your faith community.
Yes.
So how did those experiences kind of influence your desire to become an elected official?
So one thing is in the church that I went to in my community, I know that I worked with children there, so I knew a lot of people. So that also was like so excited to share with them that I'm going to be running for office. I would love for your support. And you know, people won't say this, but when you're running for office, it is great to know a lot of people in your community. And because I worked with the children's ministry, and I also had experience working with women's ministries and ESOL, I was able to, kind of share that this is just another way that I can give back to the community.
What do you think some of the assumptions are that, or not what do you think, just from your experience, what are some of the assumptions that people make about school board, especially because it is the intersection of education and policy? What are people's concerns? What are their barriers to getting involved?
Well, I will say the one thing that I thought, and it was a misconception of mine, is that the school board makes all the decisions. But we as a collective board make decisions, but not all the decisions. Our superintendent has a lot of say in the way the schools are run. But there are certain, like the policies, even as far as like the calendar, those are things that we touch. We also touch, of course, the budget, which is a huge thing. But as far as like the day in and day out workings of a school, the superintendent does that. And if there are issues or concerns, we go to him first, have him, take care of that, instead of, because people think, oh, the school board can really do this and really do that. And a lot of people are confused about that. And even me as running as a school board member, when I was running, I thought that too. But also the other thing that you learn is that it's a collective vote. You can have an idea and you can be like, I really want this to be pushed through. But if you don't have the majority vote, it doesn't get pushed through. The other thing is the way the school board runs, as far as like we have a school board meeting on our Tuesday night meetings. When we do that, it is televised. But during that time, it's more of like business. Whereas our work sessions are when we really get to like the nitty gritty of what we would like to see or ideas we want to present. And that's where we really have, I would say, more discourse. And we now have those televised, which is awesome that we were able to do that, because a lot of people would say, well, we want to know what's going on, you know, during those times. So I think the big misconception is that the school board really makes all the decisions, or one school board member can make a decision, but it is definitely not like that. It is a joint decision.
So one thing I love about Virginia is that we have elections every single year. It drives some folks crazy. I absolutely love it. But that kind of solidifies and helps us maintain that connection between policy and how we live our lives and our votes, and keeps people engaged. So just from your experience, what are some of the main issues that are concerning folks as it relates to education?
I would say the main issue has been sports, whether or not girls and boys would have the same sports programs. I know that's huge. In our district, we haven't really had those issues, but I know that a lot of people will talk about that, or they may be voting in November based on that. The other thing is bathrooms. Those are other major things, books. And the funny thing is, like, in our district, we haven't experienced, you know, any setbacks on that, or anyone coming to school board meetings about that. The other thing, though, is collective bargaining. That has been a big, you know,
for teachers.
For teachers, yes. And in our district specifically, that has been something that kind of sort of made the news about what we decided on that. And so those are, I would say, probably the four main things. And then the grading policy has been really big too. I should add that in Manassas City, which has been something that has been in our news. But I feel like at the end of the day, parents should be able to voice their concerns. Staff or teachers should be able to voice their concerns. And we as a school board, we've done a town hall so they could do that. We've also have open, you know, mic, I would say, where they can come up and they can share the concerns every single school board meeting. So I think that the beauty of Virginia and the way the school board meetings are run is that if you have an issue or if you want to share concern as a parent, you have the ability to share that concern, which I think is awesome.
I think that's important too. I think so a couple of the topics that you brought up, books,
yes,
and bathrooms and sports, you're the only conservative, you're the only GOP. Are you the only GOP?
No, I'm not the only one. There's another one.
Okay.
Russia is actually another one, but I was the only one that won the vote for the recent election from last year. There was 4 of us that ran, and unfortunately, I was the only one that from the GOP that was able to win. But yes, so go ahead. So you were gonna.
That's okay. Thank you for making that that connection.
No problem.
What pressures? Because let's be honest, they are hot button topics. They're nuanced topics. Everyone wants their child to be protected. Everyone wants their child to be seen, and that looks different for everyone. As one of 2 conservative affiliates, how does that impact your decision making?
I would say that because it has not been a big policy thing in our school district, when I was knocking on doors and talking to constituents about their desire, I gave them my philosophy as a parent. And I first do that because as a parent, I have an adult daughter who's in college, I have a teenage daughter, and then a 12-year-old. So I understand that I want to make sure that I know what my child is being taught. Yeah. But our governor actually had a rule now that teachers have to give the syllabus if the parent asks. And so it's not just something that, you know, you have to learn that. Parents can opt out. And I really appreciated that. And I think a lot of parents don't know that. And so when a parent asks about that question, I referred them back to that the policy states that a parent can opt out if they do not like what is being taught, as far as that it's an optional book. Of course, there are standards that we have set, but most of the standards have been vetted, and you know they're historical in nature. It's when we get into those op-ed books that may bring.
You say historical in nature.
So the books that are in our Virginia standards, they consistently have either they are books that have been a traditional, like we are reading these books that we've read for 20 plus years. But when we get
Like
to those,
the Bluest Eye,
right,
To Kill a Mockingbird.
right.
Okay.
And those have been on the roster for years. But when we bring in some other books where maybe it's a teacher selection. I had that experience with my daughter where there was a book that I didn't feel was appropriate for my daughter to read, based on the climate of our world. And I didn't know that she had read it until after she had read it. I was very upset as a parent, and then it prompted me to make sure I talked to the teacher, said if there is a book that you are going to allow my child to read that does bring in those hot button topics, I would appreciate if you let me know so that I can opt out if I want to. And I think that's how I take it as a parent and as a teacher, because we do need to respect the values of our students, because all of our students have different values that they come with in their home, and we need to respect them.
So speaking of which, so in your bio, you mentioned your faith a lot and how that has influenced your decision-making going forward. How before the show started, we talked about trust.
Yes.
How can a parent who doesn't have the same belief system as you or any board member, how can they trust that policies are being created or ideals that might not align with your faith? How can they trust that those interests are being fairly represented?
I will say this, because I am a teacher, I serve all students. And that's the way that I come as a school board member, knowing that I need to, if I'm going to vote for something, it is going to be based on everyone, not just the minority that I might be a part of, but everyone, that we think about all of our students. And I think that's the way that I always ran my classroom. If I were to talk about holidays, I talked about all the holidays. If I was to talk about anyone, like if we talked about Ramadan or we talked about Christmas, we spoke about them all. We would read books about what we are a family, and it showed all different types of families. And so because as a teacher, we serve everyone, I see that as a school board member as well.
Absolutely. Inclusion is so important when it comes to education, because these are the people that are going to be informing policy later on, these little humans. So please make sure you don't go anywhere. We're going to continue our conversation with Dana Marie Miles, who is a school board member for the city of Manassas. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this public service soon.
Window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We? Go to the door, ask for the ball back.
Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead.
I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
Dad.
See ya, dude. See ya. You remember me and you're well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Tell him it was an accident, and we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Wanted some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about ripped off life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Alpha Woolen, and I'm your host this evening for the Inside Scoop. We are going to continue our conversation with Dana Miles, who is a school board member from the city of Manassas. So before we left off, we were talking about just the importance or the effort that you put in to make sure that you represent all ideas, all ideologies, all principles as it relates to faith. You are someone of faith, but you also recognize that not every student's going to have that background. So do you find that parents, that's a primary concern of parents?
No, I would say no. I think that they really, truly just want a great education for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they also want to be heard. You know, if there is a concern, whether their student has an IEP or their student, is an English language learner, they want to make sure that they are heard if there is an issue. And I think that's all parents. And I know, speaking as a parent, that's how I feel as well. If I have an issue, I want to be able to contact the principal, the teacher, and get my voice heard, and whatever, thing that I have an issue with taken care of.
So one of the, and I have to ask this question because November 4th, we have an important election coming up.
Yes.
For governor. We have Winston Earl Sears, who's the GOP candidate, Abigail Spanberger, who's a Democratic candidate, and my father, actually, he called me over the weekend. He was like, what's this I hear about boys and girls using the same bathroom? So from a school board perspective, I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, where do you stand on this?
Right.
But as a school board member, is that a topic that voters should come to you to talk about or expect policy implementation or advocacy or coming against if someone's child is transgender and if they were born a cis male and they identify as a female, and if there's state policy that says that this transgender girl can use the girl's bathroom and a parent gets word of it, do they talk to you? Like, what is the grievance process?
So I know that in other districts it has been a big issue, especially in Loudoun County. We haven't had that issue in our county, but as a teacher and a mom, I think that if my child was that way, I would want them to have a safe space to go to as far as a bathroom. And one thing that I encourage or I would vote for is to have special, like, I don't want to say special because that's, but a bathroom that is unisex. So that way a student can go in there and have it locked. So that way they are comfortable going to the bathroom, but it tackles the minority and the majority, because I believe that if the majority isn't dealing with this accommodation that they would need, they should not have to be subjected to that. And the way that I mean that is keeping girls and boys bathrooms separate, but having similar to an adult bathroom that we have that's unisex, so that student may use that so they can feel safe in their space. Because we would never want a child to feel like when they go to school, they don't feel secure or safe. And I wouldn't want my child to feel that way. And I know most people feel that they don't want a child to feel ostracized because of the way that they have chosen to live. And this is how they feel. We want them to feel safe when they go to school. And that's where I stand on that. But as far as having a boy or a girl go into the opposite bathroom, I don't agree with that, because that is giving an accommodation that would affect everyone. And in schools, when we do testing accommodations, that everyone gets that accommodation, it's based on what's best for that child. And so giving that accommodation for that child so that they are feeling safe is what I would support.
And is that discourse, that's what the school board, like these types of conversations, that's how decisions are made?
It is. I would say during our work session, if this would be a topic of discussion, we would talk about whether or not we wanted to go forward to change the policy. And then once we do that, then we would go before our normal policy time, and then we would decide whether or not we would vote on it. So we usually do more of a, like you said, just kind of a conversation. I'll give you an example. We were talking about salaries, and no, we
Always a hot topic.
That's always a hot topic, whether or not salaries should be changed for school board members. And we only had 3 school board members who agreed with changing the salary, increasing it, and 3 did not, because we did not have a tie. We went with what is the norm, what we have, and we will look at it next time in 2027. So that would be the way we would do it. But we haven't had that discussion. We haven't had any parents who've come to school board meetings discussing that. I know we're a very unique area because in Northern Virginia, it's definitely a hot topic, but not in Manassas City, which I'm actually thankful we don't have to. But when it comes, that's where I stand on it.
And that's the process to tackle these types of issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for answering that question. So how do you view the role of social emotional learning in classrooms?
I believe that our counselors, our social workers are very equipped with training on how to give our students that social emotional learning. However, I think it's important, and I've seen it's important for our teachers to also understand it. At the school that I worked at in Manassas Park, we would have our students sit down every day, and we did all VAES training, and it was great because it worked with bullying, it worked with classroom environment and family. We saw our bullying go down because we started with, we are a family. And when students know that they're accepted and they are in a classroom and we are a family, those kind of things are not as high because we know that, okay, I don't treat my family member that well. If I have something that's wrong, I'm going to tell them. So a lot of schools, I know Prince William does it as well. We do a lot of social emotional learning inside the classroom, but the counselor comes in and kind of reinforces it by giving a strategic lesson. In Manassas City, we actually have a program that we're doing as well, and it's been great. And I know that it was piloted at one of our schools, and we're kind of continuing it. So it is a big thing in Manassas City, and we continue to make sure that it's an important thing. We even have a mental health hotline that students can, it's a telehealth that students can access, because we know that students are going through things we don't even know about. And so I think that it's important for schools to understand that even though we're not their parent, sometimes we have to take on the role of parent when parents are not there.
Do you think that teachers are being asked to do too much?
I would say as a teacher, there are some times where it may feel like the workload is heavy.
Yeah,
it is. I think, though, one major thing that we're trying to do is giving our teachers more CLTs where they get to collaborate together. So that way, when they go back to their classroom, they've already planned. So that's one major thing that we're doing. The other thing is we're giving them more time. Actually, in Manassas City, they don't just have 45 minutes of their planning time. They get almost 60 minutes. So Manassas City is kind of above the curve with that. Because I know in Prince William, we don't get that much time. But so I know that they have heard the concerns of the teachers, knowing that they need more time. It is tough as a teacher in this, because the teacher shortage is real.
Yeah.
It is very real. In a lot of schools, not in particular in Manassas City, we're having a hard time hiring,
Wow.
But we haven't experienced that as much, which is a blessing, because when we first started the year, we only had 2 slots open for hiring in Manassas City. So our superintendent's doing a great job.
Wow.
Yes.
That's tremendous. How should the public measure the success of a school board member?
I would say they should measure the success based on not just the scores. I would say that is a big indicator. And a lot of people are like, well, if I can look up a school and it's only rated a 2, are you really doing your job?
Right. Yeah.
And I know that is, I think that you have to give us time. I've been on for a year. Several things that I've actually seen happen since I started. We have changed the chair terms. So when you're actually doing things to change things that have always been the same, that's when you're like, are you actually impacting?
Wow.
There's a few things I can share. So like the chair term.
Yeah.
So our chair has been able to be chair every single year for years. We never had any terms. So like the governor has a term, it could be for 4 years, and then you have to switch governor. So I came in and our board, we were talking about it, discussing. I was like, I really think we need to bring some fresh ideas, give other people a chance to be chair. So now we have terms on our chair limits. So it's only 2, you can only serve for 2 years in a 4-year term. And then our vice chair will fluctuate so that everyone gets an opportunity if they want to serve as vice chair. So I think, like you said, a litmus test of if a school board member is actually doing, what are they doing to change things? What have they proposed that would impact whether it's the schools as a whole or the way things are run? Because I feel like if you're just going to the school board meetings and you're not seeing hey, maybe we should do this, hey, maybe we should do that, that is something you should think about. And I think that's anyone that is running for office.
Right.
If you see them kind of going with the flow, there's no change happening, it's like, oh, or did they try and maybe they failed? And that's one thing too. I've tried several things and it didn't go through, but at least you try,
right?
You know, yeah, and staying connected too, I would say.
So staying connected, bringing in fresh ideas, and I guess being willing to kind of pass the baton on.
Yes, that is true. Because I think if you want to try to hold on to it, there's some times that you keep it stagnant. And I think it's very, very important to have fresh ideas because, you know, especially if you have school board members who have been on there for years and years and years, and then like nothing is changing, you know? Yeah. So it's just an important thing. It's no shade on anyone. It's just making sure that the ideas come up to the top.
Right. The good stuff rises to the top.
Right.
So one more question before we head out. We talked about trust before the show started. So how do you plan to increase trust between the board, teachers, and families, especially in today's political climate?
My goal is to make sure they see me. I try my best to go to events, as many as I can. I actually proposed doing a town hall we did recently, just giving parents a voice. When I see parents, I make sure to give them business cards. Hey, if you have a question, you have a concern, let me know. I try to have an open door. And I think one of our open doors that we did in our school board is allowing our work sessions to be televised. That was one major thing. Yeah. Because now our constituents can really see what we're talking about during the work sessions. So I feel like for me to build trust is to make sure that I'm building relationships, because it starts with that. And then if I do see something that needs to be changed, try to change it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dana, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Inside Scoop. And please make sure you don't go anywhere. We're going to continue our conversation with Jenny Gross-Bradshaw, who is the director of Compass Homeschool Enrichment Program. So please stay right there. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you in a couple of seconds.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Hi, I'm Josh Temple. You might have seen me on TV where I help folks turn their houses into dream homes. But forget construction. Parenting is the toughest job there is. So when you need help or advice, turn to the parenting experts at Boys Town.
I was afraid of that.
Well, guess it's time to get you fixed.
Your pets will start fooling around sooner than you think.
Go on, get out of here!
Accidental litters lead to millions killed in shelters each year. Help prevent more. Fix at month 4.
Food. It nourishes, brings us together, and adds flavor to life. That's why it's important to wash hands, surfaces, and fresh produce. Keep raw meat, poultry, and seafood separate from ready-to-eat foods like fruits and vegetables. And cook to proper temperatures using a food thermometer. Enjoy! And refrigerate leftovers within 2 hours. For more tips on safely preparing foods, visit homefoodssafety.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
And thank you so much for joining us here on the Inside Scoop. I'm your host for the evening, Alpha Woolen. So the first half, we introduced you to Dana Miles, who is on the Manassas School Board right now. We have a new special guest with us. Her name is Jenny Grove Bradshaw, and she's the director of Compass Homeschool. As I mentioned earlier, we're talking about education policy tonight. So I'm really excited to begin our conversation. Jenny, how are you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So homeschool, actually my sister, I have a sister and her husband, they live in York, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And they are homeschooling their oldest. Luke, smartest little boy in the world as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not just saying that because he's my nephew.
Yeah.
I am. It's actually, that's the truth.
We got a little bit of a look at it.
Just a little bit. That's right. But before we get into Compass Whole School, how did you come to form this organization? What made you turn in this direction?
So I started Compass in the fall of 2012. So we are entering our 14th year.
Wow.
I was homeschooling my older daughters at the time. They were 7. They were second graders. And it was my goal to have them involved in their education and to give them choices and to have them take ownership for it. But I realized very early in our homeschooling journey that they liked learning alongside other children. They liked being in classes. They liked hearing from someone other than mom. And so it was kind of a light bulb moment. I thought, wow, I can put together something where they can learn with other children, hear from other teachers, but I can step back and be the director of their education rather than the sole source teacher.
Right. And so you walk the walk. You have 2 daughters. You have, I think, a total of 4 daughters. 2, one graduated from UVA, class of 20. No, she will graduate from UVA.
They're twins, both seniors in college.
Yep. BS in biology, and then one is at Purdue as well. BS in aerospace engineering. And then you have 2 other daughters?
That's right. I've got a middle schooler and an elementary school daughter.
Right. So you walk the walk. So when you said you started homeschooling them when they were 7. Does that mean they were in public school initially and then you took them out?
No. With my older daughters, I look at homeschooling as an extension of what I was already doing as a mom. Mm-hmm. I taught them their colors. I taught them to count. Reading just followed, and we kept going from there. So I homeschooled from birth or toddlers. Mm-hmm. Pick your point. But I started Compass when they were 7.
Ah, okay. And so what was it about this was in Virginia? Yep. What was it about the Virginia public school system? Were you in Fairfax County, Prince William County, Stafford?
We're in Fairfax County.
You were in Fairfax. So what was it about the school system that you're like, I think I want to do this myself?
I really wasn't. I didn't give a great deal of thought to the public school system, but rather I was at home. I was working with my children every day. We incorporated learning in play, and we just kept going. So it was an extension of what I was already doing. And each year, and most homeschool families approach it this way, you take 1 year at a time. Nobody starts out with a 6-year-old and says, okay, we're going to do this through graduation. Most families take it 1 year at a time and sit back and have that reflection in the spring before the next school year to say, was this working for us? And you get kids who ask to try public school. In the case of my older daughters, they did not. So we did homeschool all the way through, 12th grade.
So for folks that are just kind of like, there needs to be some level of accountability when it comes to education. You don't know what's being taught in the home of homeschoolers. Are they having the opportunity to learn about education or creationism? How we need more eyes on the process. I'm sure you've encountered people who had that perspective. What was your response?
Well, my response is a lot of times, and your previous guest talked about this, we don't know what's being taught in the classrooms. Mm-hmm. And I believe that parents know what's best for their own children. Parents are the best educators to make the decision on how their children learn, families, I believe, should have a choice in what the children learn. As far as accountability, the homeschool law in Virginia does require something called evidence of progress. So each spring, homeschool families have to turn in either a test score or the opinion of an evaluator to just say that, yes, we've looked at what this family was doing the past year and the child's making progress.
The opinion of an evaluator, is this someone assigned by the state?
No, but it is somebody that has to have a master's degree.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I did not know that. Learning something new. So a couple of seconds ago, you mentioned that parents are the best. In the best case scenario, parents are the best purveyors or authorities over a child's education. But unfortunately, some kids don't grow up in those households. Are you saying that from the overall education perspective, homeschoolers should have, those who want to homeschool their children should have the same opportunity, the same recognition, the same platform to teach their own children as those who go to private school and those who go to public school?
I like to look at it and think that, first of all, a homeschool parent has a more vested interest in the success of the child than any teacher who has 24 or 26 children to look after. A parent's always going to care the deepest and be willing to find those resources. But as far as the content and what the parents are bringing to the table, there's a vast world of options for homeschool families, and parents get to go out and decide what is important to our family to teach. For some families, that might be incorporating faith. Other families might want to make sure that they incorporate volunteer work. And then most families are covering all of the basics, the reading, math, writing, but they have a lot of different materials to choose from, so they can choose materials that match the way their children learn.
Sure. So I don't want to just approach this conversation just as if you are someone who simply homeschooled your children, which I think is a great undertaking. You actually have a business. So let's talk about that. So how do you decide on any new subjects that you'd like your organization to be able to offer students?
Well, first of all, you have to look at the teachers that I have, which I hire professionals. They are not necessarily professional teachers, but they're subject matter experts and teaching artists. And the thing that I look for in educators is that they are passionate about their topic. So I have people teaching classes who are excited about their topic, and that rubs off on the kids. So as far as deciding what subjects to teach, unlike a school system that has kind of a prescriptive curriculum that they have to cover, I sit down. It's a process that takes me 3 months every year. I sit down with each of my teachers, and we sit down and discuss what went well this year, what would you like to do. They know these meetings are coming up, and so they pitch me ideas. And, hey, I've always wanted to teach a class on a so-and-so topic, and then we discuss, and do we think that would be of interest to enough people? What age group would it be appropriate for? And so most of the ideas for new classes come from my teachers.
Wow. Have you ever encountered a family that said, hey, I really just want my child to tackle or be exposed to this subject, I have the sniffles, this subject matter, and as the business owner and not their parent, you've ever been like, oh, man, I really wish they'd open up a little bit or let their child be exposed to this topic here. Have you ever experienced that?
Well, I deal with a lot of families that are brand new to homeschooling. Yeah. And when people first start to homeschool, they often kind of grasp onto the model that they know, which is usually a public school model. And it's really fun to work with people and let them start to watch them as they start to relax and realize, okay, we don't have to teach this at this time because my child's interested in something else. For example, I think in Virginia schools, I think it's 4th grade maybe, that they teach simple machines. And as a homeschooler, I look at it and say, hey, if you've got a 6-year-old that's excited about simple machines, you need to capture that excitement, and that's the time that you delve into that. And so I always will work with families and suggest that, no, wait a minute, you don't have to do this now if your child's interested in this other topic. For example, we have a class on marine biology. And if that's the child's passion or interest at that time, that's the time to jump on it and dive into that topic.
So do you take students with special needs?
A limited amount. The way our program is structured, I don't have experts that interpret IEPs. We don't have instructional aides. So we do have students with special needs, but they are ones that can generally get along in a typical classroom environment. Our classes are small. They're generally between 6 and 12 kids, never larger than 12.
And so are we, and you don't have to get, I don't want you to reveal someone's record. Do you include children with autism or Down syndrome, or are we thinking like dyslexia?
We have a lot of students with dyslexia. We have students on the autism spectrum. We have had a student with Down syndrome, Tourette's, and we have students with anxiety and depression. We have students that have experienced a lot of bullying in school. But at the end of the day, all of our students need to be able to function positively in a classroom and not create distractions that take away from the other students.
And do you find, for example, with the students with depression and anxiety, that these smaller classrooms actually make it easier for them to learn?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We saw a big increase after the pandemic of students. What we saw is, kids that were in elementary school before the pandemic, then they stayed home, and then they were in then they had to go to middle school, which is much larger, much crazier. Or students that were in middle school, then the pandemic hit, and they were supposed to then show up in high school. And so we saw a lot of kids with anxiety over those situations. So the other thing that's very unique about our program is some people have described it as like community college for kids. It's an a la carte model where students can come and they can take one class one time. They can take 3 classes in a day. They could take their entire school workload at our program. It's entirely mix and match because it all goes back to my belief about parents having choices. So if you've got a student who's perhaps experienced some anxiety, they're not sure how they're going to feel about the group setting, maybe they take one class on Tuesday and one class on Thursday to just dip their toe in and start to get comfortable again.
Wow. Do you find that parents come to you like, you know what, I can't do this. I want my child to be homeschooled, but the teacher cannot be me. Are you like the solution to that?
Very much so.
Oh, okay.
Very much so. That's in the last week, I've met with 4 different families, all preparing to pull out of public school, and they're looking for a solution. A lot of people feel very comfortable because we have a physical location. I like to describe it as a learning center, but they feel it's a comfortable transition point for somebody who's been in a structured school system. And we sit down and we say, okay, now here's how you can accomplish math. Here's what you can do for language arts. Here's some ideas for science. Here's something you might want to do on your own. So I help them mix and match that package.
That's awesome. I can't wait to continue the conversation. Please make sure you don't go anywhere as we continue our conversation with Jenny Groves Bradshaw. She's the director of Compass Homeschool. I told you we were going to be talking about education policy tonight, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you in like 2 seconds.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
I got a creak in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. All I know is get on. Very exciting, all that I can do was remember you. You know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more. And
big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes. I
Right?
mean, like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, yeah, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know?
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you?
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
I am your host for this evening. We are going to continue our conversation with Jenny Grove Bradshaw, who is the director of Compass Homeschool. So when we left off, we were talking about the parents that come to you and say, you know what, Jenny, I want my child to have this homeschool experience, but I am not that person. And so here comes Compass to the rescue. I guess from a policy perspective, what is your thought on, or what are your observations when it comes to policy in Virginia and as it relates to homeschooling?
So generally, Virginia is considered kind of a medium difficulty state to homeschool. And I really don't consider it difficult. But if we have someone that moves here from Texas, they think, oh my goodness, there are all kinds of hoops to jump through. But it's really quite simple to homeschool in Virginia. There's a notification in the fall, and there is evidence of progress that I mentioned at the end of the year. So really 2 steps, some nuances with each of those. So someone coming from a state with no regulations will often be a little worried. Are they going to be able to meet these requirements? But then if you have someone moving from some of the Northeast states, they go, oh my goodness, this is so easy to homeschool in Virginia. So there really are not a lot of policies. Not a lot of things make it through the Virginia legislature to change the current homeschooling policies. I don't think there's been a change for about 10 years. And at that point, it loosened and made homeschool a little bit easier. Every year there's an effort in Virginia to try to allow homeschoolers to gain access to some of the resources in public school. The big one that comes up every year is sports access. Homeschoolers are not allowed to join sports teams. For that matter, homeschoolers can't join a debate club or a science club or a chess club at a local public school. So there's not a lot of crisscross between the policies and the issues discussed in public school and homeschooling. I say the one thing from a policy standpoint that I would love to throw back out there to our current governor and our next governor is following the pandemic, the state had surplus funds that they made available as they were called Virginia K-12 readiness grants. They were grants that were made available to any family in Virginia, and that included homeschool families. And that was really one of the first programs that I was aware of that homeschoolers could access. And it gave money to families to use for any educational services that they were looking for, that they felt they needed. And so that allowed homeschoolers to take additional classes outside of the home, and it allowed a lot of families to access private tutoring to make up some ground perhaps that was lost during the pandemic. I think all homeschool families would love to see that come back.
So can you share any success stories? Like, what does success look like from Compass Homeschool?
I think what's different is instead of having a set of metrics like you might see in a public school or the metrics of grades or GPAs, every family can really define what success is for themselves and for their child. So a child that was struggling in public school, struggling maybe in the large setting, maybe that's distracting, maybe they weren't getting the support that they needed, and all of a sudden they homeschool and their child starts hitting some milestones, making up new ground. Again, it's really a family family goals for what is success. There are plenty of homeschoolers that go to great colleges and take a very traditional path. And there are homeschoolers that take alternate paths. They're setting up businesses, as getting involved with their communities. So really, there are, I think, many definitions of success.
Have you had any instances or situations where a family was just like, I thought this was for us, but probably not?
Well, it actually is really common in homeschooling for people to kind of come and go. Maybe they have a year that's not so successful in public school and they pull out and they homeschool, and maybe they homeschool for 2 or 3 years, and then they want to give public school a try. So it is a fairly fluid boundary where people kind of come and go. Sometimes they'll move out of the area and come back, and we see families returning sometimes after 5, 6, 7 years. So it's not a decision that you're stuck with. Yeah, there's always other options available.
Going back to what you mentioned as far as homeschooled children not being able to join like the debate club or Spanish club or sports, how do you make up for that, or how do parents kind of fill in that gap?
The homeschool community has just about every opportunity that you would find in a public school available to homeschooled students. And that's been one of my big missions at Compass, to build community. So a lot of people come to Compass to take classes. That's kind of the nuts and bolts. But one of the things that motivates me is getting up and saying, what other opportunities can I bring to homeschool families? So we have everything from a school newspaper and a prom and graduation and
you have that?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. In fact, this coming weekend, we've got a fall dance for high school students and a fall party for middle school students. We had school pictures last week. The week before that, we had a book sale, and prior to that was a food truck week. So we build a lot of things into our calendar to build community as far as special events and clubs. The more of those resources that I can help bring to homeschoolers, the more parents can feel confident in their choices. Everyone that homeschools at some point there's a little voice in the back of their head going, am I ruining my child? Am I ruining their chances at whatever their definition of success is? And they're always wondering. I homeschooled my older daughters all the way through their senior year, and I still had doubts in the back of my mind. Have I done something terrible to ruin their chances? And it wasn't until those college acceptance letters rolled in that I said, okay, I really did. It did work. I followed the process, trust your instincts. But these extra things that we can do to build community help those parents that have some apprehension when they're worried that, can I do this? Is my child missing out? Well, no, they're not missing out on band. Compass has a band.
Right.
We have clubs and lots of opportunities for kids.
I know one thing that public school systems or school systems in general are wanting to focus on are just different alternatives. Not everyone is meant to go to college. Some people can go to a trade school. Some people can go to the military. Are those options available? Do you have those kind of career shaping opportunities with your students and the families, or do you have a model where you kind of give suggestions to those parents so that they can begin to have those conversations?
One of the things that I've been working to build at Compass since 2021 is generally they're all on Mondays, is our career-focused options for high school students. Because in working with a lot of teens, I find that they sometimes just don't know all the options available to them. And so I like to offer classes where they can try out different career fields. So we have everything from coding. We've had a culinary class that's taught at a very high level, a lot of detailed culinary skills for a student that might want to go into hospitality. We offer a program where students can earn their certification as an EMT, which is a nice way to test if you might be interested in a medical career. Sports technology and kinesiology, interior design. So a lot of career classes for students to try. That helps them make choices on what they're going to do after college or after homeschooling high school.
Okay. What percentage, off the top of your head, what percentage of your students actually go on to college or military or community college or trade school?
If you include all of those options, I think certainly at 90% or so.
Wow. Yeah, that's tremendous. That's quite a success model.
When you're teaching kids in the manner that they learn best, they get to be agents in deciding what they learn. And homeschoolers have the flexibility of deciding, when do they want to learn? What do they want to learn? In what modality do they want to learn? So all of those contribute to a student being successful.
What's the radius? Because you are, Compass is located in Fairfax County?
In Fairfax County, in Herndon.
Herndon. What's the radius? Like, you have families traveling from how far to be a part of your organization?
We, in general, about a 1 hour radius. So from Herndon, we have families that come from, say, Quantico and Stafford, Arlington, Alexandria, DC. We always get a couple families from Silver Spring, Rockville, Maryland. Usually we have 1 or 2 families from West Virginia each year, and then all the way out into western Loudoun County, Purcellville, Berryville, and usually a few families that'll travel in on 66, sometimes from the Shenandoah Valley or Midway, Marshall, out in Fauquier County.
Do you find parents, just again talking about policy, oh gosh, we don't have time for that question. Okay, just quickly, concerns over gun control and the safety of their children. Do you ever have those conversations with parents?
I hear that a lot of parents making the choice. That's one of the reasons that some people choose to homeschool is the safety of their schools. But then once they're at Compass, and again, they have the flexibility of choosing how they're going to teach, when they're going to teach, when they're going to come to class. It's not something that we deal with after that.
Jenny, thank you so much for joining us here on the Inside Scoop. Your information is on the screen. If you want to find out more about Compass Homeschool, please make sure you visit her website. So again, we've been talking about education policy this evening, which is something that is very important to people. Often when we talk about education policy, we narrow it down to test scores and teacher pay or the latest reform policies. But at its core, education policy isn't about paperwork. It's about people. It's about every learner of every type being seen, supported, and set up for success. That means designing systems that recognize learning differences, students with disabilities, English language learners, neurodivergent minds, gifted thinkers, and kids who thrive through art, movement, and hands-on work. A one-size-fits-all approach to education is consistently proven to be unsuccessful. Successful policy approaches education as a living and evolving spectrum. And when we craft policy that honors that truth, we don't just teach better, we lead better. But inclusion doesn't work without equity. We cannot say we value every learner while low-income schools and communities fight just to keep the lights on. Funding disparities are not just budget issues, they are justice issues. Every child, no matter their zip code, deserves access to a safe building, qualified teachers, technology, and opportunity. Good policy removes barriers, but great policy builds bridges. It ensures resources flow where they're most needed, not just where they're most visible. Because when we fund every school and empower every learner, we're not just investing in education, we're investing in democracy. That's the standard. All learners, all communities, all in, because that's our future. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Inside Scoop. We'll see you next time.